with the city manager in the last year and a half was by radio for a number of reasons. And they started off with saying, I understand it's not my role to decide whether we do this. But if you're going to do this, here are my suggestions. That role would be different if I was city manager. I would have the freedom to do some, to approach some issues in a wholly different fashion. So I don't think that my serving as an advisor in the city attorney capacity and my serving as city manager, it's totally apples and oranges.
You say you could approach them in a different fashion. How so?
Because I would be in a position to actually propound, promote, encourage an idea rather than simply defining and helping with the vehicle that was used to accomplish somebody else's idea. Now ultimately y'all, the city commission, has to vet the idea and go forward with it. But there's a huge, it's just a totally different role to say that someone decides that something's going to be done and they ask you how to implement it. That's totally different than you're being able to play a role in deciding whether something's done. The role I've played has been in deciding how something was implemented, not in deciding whether it was done. Now, again, I understand that the role of city manager is not the role of the city commission, but nonetheless, there's a whole lot more opportunity to have input with the city commission in terms of ideas and policies and moves that are going forward. So, you know, as a city attorney, I was never given the latitude. Your charter puts the city attorney under the city manager, not the city commission. And that's something that maybe you want to change, but that's not what's been the case for 15 years. The city attorney answers to the city manager, not the city commission. You know, and some of you know, that there are a lot of times when I wrote memos and copied members of the city commission just because I felt uncomfortable with what maybe the city commission didn't know about given situations. But that was something I had to do with some care because your charter says I answer to the city manager, not the commission. Well, because of that, what I'm involved in is a direct result of what the city manager wants me to be involved in as city attorney. And there are a lot of issues that I had no knowledge of until maybe I was given a contract and asked to move that contract forward. And I think you spoke with some of the commissioners that have been on the commission. You would find that was totally the case, that I would be surprised sometimes just as they were with things that were advanced.
Okay. And so with that being said, what do you do if so chosen? How do you change that communication process?
I think that's the easiest part of the deal. As I said earlier, I don't understand why that wasn't something that was a goal from the beginning of the city manager. Understanding that you were elected by the people to set policy and make major decisions for the city. And the city manager is your person to help implement those goals and strategies. Means that there has to be communication between the city manager and you. They've got to, number one, learn what your philosophy is about a given topic. And then also they got to provide you with feedback as to how they're coming along and accomplishing that goal. I just don't think that communication side of it, the only part of that that's going to be a challenge is figuring out what method of communication each of you like best, whether it's emails or phone or however you want it done. And understanding that we can't pull the city commission about decisions, but instead it has to be information basically being provided to you with no response in terms of a vote or a position, because that would be circumventing the Sunshine Law. But I think that the process is simply one of, number one, making sure that there's anything that's significant on tap. If it's a day-to-day operational issue about somebody having a dispute with a water bill, that's probably not something that the city commission has time to be involved with, unless there's some aspect of the dispute that looks like it has the potential of reaching big proportions. On the other hand, if it's an issue about a project the city is embarking upon, if it's a grant issue, if it's a contract issue that tends to have potential of blowing up and causing an issue that you have to deal with in a meeting, the sooner you know about it, the easier it is for everybody. So it would be to my benefit to communicate with you, not a chore. It would be, in my opinion, it would be an advantage to communicate with you.
Okay. Last question. Taking a snapshot of the city, although you've been here for the last 4 decades, taking a snapshot of this city, what do you see as the strengths and the weaknesses of Palatka?
Strength of people. There are a lot of good people in Palatka. And there, in my business, I've come across people who have talents and abilities that no one would suspect of a resident of Palaca. A lot of people in Palaca are underestimated. Our strength is our people. I read a list today of the best places to raise your children. Came out in one of the magazines, and Palaca was on that list. It was 32, but it was on the list of best places to raise your children. I think that that's our strength. There are a lot of talented people here who can accomplish a lot, and I'm not sure we've taken advantage of that pool over the years. You know, people who are in private business, but who might provide ideas about how we advance an economic development program. If put in an environment where they felt comfortable in making ideas. So, in a nutshell, I think our asset is our strength. The fact that we do have a small town environment that still offers an awful lot of advantages over the big city environment. I think it's still an attractive selling point for people who will come down here for a Blue Crab Festival, but then go back to Jacksonville and make fun of us on the radio. And I think the challenge then is to let them see that on a day-to-day basis, there are enough assets here so that we should be taken seriously. And I think that's a very doable thing. But we just have to set out with the goal number one of not making fun of ourselves, of establishing and building pride in ourselves as we move forward. And I think that grows and it becomes contagious. And I think that should be our goal, is setting out on that journey.
Okay. And in the spirit of Commissioner Borum, I got one last question. So the last question is simply this. There's been some concern that this is a retirement job for you. So I want you to address that issue as to whether it's what your position is a retirement job for you, and what is it that Don Holmes brings to the table when I compare you to the other 5 candidates who obviously have been coming to the table with some city management experience.
Well, first of all, you're asking me what Don Holmes' position is. I've worked hard over the last 39 years in practice, and I don't need a job. I'm looking for this job, and that may sound trite, but it's the truth. I'm looking to make a difference here. I have provisions for retirement that I've made for myself over the years. And if I don't get this job, I'll go back to making money.
I understand.
I'm sorry?
I understand.
But there comes a point in time in your life when you look around and you've been doing something for a long time and you say, this is an opportunity that just popped up. It wasn't something I was looking for, wasn't something I was going out and seeking. This is an opportunity for me to make a difference in a town that I chose to stay in 39 years ago when I could have gone elsewhere, because I thought this town had potential. And it's never really realized that potential, and I'm not saying I can snap my fingers and make it happen, but I think I can be part of that process. And that's why I want the job.
Okay. Any other questions?
I don't have any.
Okay. Then let me ask the fun questions.
Okay.
So we thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
For your candor.
That's what you need when you vote.
Thanks.
Vote them to do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Mary? Thank you.
Don, your hands feel like you work a little bit. They don't-
Ma'am?
Your hands feel like you work a little bit.
I do work a little bit.
Yeah.
Work all the time.
You shoot guns.
That's the gym.
That's the gym.
All right, we got one last one.